Hello and welcome back to ToryTalks. This is going to be a great episode. We've just defeated some kind of weird pogo stick guy, and we've decided that we're going to go rescue the princess somehow. I'm talking to the Chancellor of the Mushroom Kingdom. The last time I did a Super Mario RPG episode, we talked a little bit about the idea of religious conversion, and I was thinking about some of the thoughts I had on conversion to Islam. And I'm not an expert on Islam by any stretch of the imagination. I am not an adherent to one of the sets of traditions of Islam. I understand it a little bit because of some things that I've read. So I wanted to clear up a couple things because I think some of the things that I said, some of the things that I said could have made it seem that Islam is sort of one giant monolithic thing, and that is not even remotely true. So I want to clear up some confusion, but also it was really good for me to kind of go back and look over some of the things that I've learned about Islam as a religion and as a culture, a set of cultures, and there being a history. Oh, I'm going to jump. Haha, hilarious joke. I don't know why that just happened. Yeah, I kind of wanted to go over those things, and this isn't, this episode is not going to advance the plot terribly because I'm going to be stuck in the sewers, I think, for a while before I get to the boss down there. So let's talk about Islam. I mentioned the 5 pillars of Islam, and I wanted to clear those up. There is the Shahada, which is there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. There is Salat, which is prayer, which you typically think about when you think about the Muslim call to prayer. That is Salat. There is Psalm, which is fasting. So during the month of Ramadan, there will be fasting, and different traditions of Muslims do that in different ways. There's Zakat, which is almsgiving, and this word is related to, if you know Hebrew or study the Hebrew scriptures at all, there is the tzaddikim, are the righteous ones. Into the water we go. And zakat comes from a similar root word, kind of in that family of languages. And then there's Hajj, which is the pilgrimage. So those are the 5 pillars of Islam, and anybody who says I am a part of the tradition of Islam will have probably some kind of interpretation about those things. They're a really big deal. This is going to be... get into this pipe. So this is kind of very mazy and kind of serpentine. Oh, that's not... Well, where am I going? Let's fight this guy. What's that, a cheep? Do you think? No, it's a goopay or something. So those are the 5 pillars. There are lots of traditions within Islam, and I've had a lot of my views influenced by John Green, and also at Jay the Nerd Kid on Twitter. If you want to check out some of her writing, she is a Muslim, very intelligent. I love reading the things that she says about her religious convictions and traditions. And one of the things that she is quick to remind people is that she and any one single Muslim are not... Oh, no. One of these box monsters. No one single Muslim is a spokesperson for the entire Muslim faith. There's just no giant single... When we say it's not monolithic, it's not a monolith. Islam does not mean one thing. That's why we say there's a set of cultures, there's a set of traditions within, kind of fall into this purview of Islam. And then the edges may be kind of fuzzy. And if you think about it, most religious traditions are like this anyway. Christianity is very broad, and some people think that Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are a part of that, and some people think that they're not, and some people think that Catholics are the only ones who are Christians, and some people think that Protestants are so there's this, almost a disagreement. Oh, he's so dead. There's disagreement about what this is, so it's not one giant religious tradition. But there are 3 kind of the 3 biggest movements within Islam are the Sunnis, the Shiites, and Sufis. So a Sunni Muslim they would call themselves. Oh yeah, that's really good. That keeps me from getting turned into a scarecrow. They are the people of the tradition. They call themselves al-as-sunnah, people of the tradition of Muhammad. And they go back to kind of the very beginning of Islam, when Muhammad was kind of passing on the power of his growing religious, cultural, political movement. It's all of these things in one big kind of lump. They call the first four caliphs the rightly guided caliphs. And I don't remember who they were off the top of my head. It's Abu Bakr, Uthman, and two others whose names I don't recall. And that is the majority of Muslims, between 75 and 90%, somewhere in there, would consider themselves of a Sunni tradition. A Shia, or a Shiite, the Shia tradition, believed that Muhammad's son Ali was the first imam, and he was the rightful heir, kind of to the authority of Islam and the Muslim tradition. And then there's Sufism, which is kind of it's an inner mystical dimension of Islam. They practice perfection of worship as shown to Muhammad by Gabriel. So they believe that Gabriel came to Muhammad and said, "This is the way that you worship and act rightly and perfectly." And there's a pursuit of that. But also there's non-denominational Muslims, just like there's non-denominational Christians. Muslims who I don't really adhere to a single thing. I kind of, and not pick and choose in a way that's, I don't want to indict that, but it's very diverse and complex, and people have free will to choose things. That's also a very strong tradition found within the Quran, is the idea that Allah gives his followers the ability to choose to do the right things, and to choose to be followers and individuals who submit to God. There are also Quranists. So there are these things in Islam called hadiths, and they are basically like writings of prophets. I think maybe a helpful analog would be the way that we think about the writings of the prophets in the Old Testament, or what Hebrew, what Jewish people would call the Nevi'im. These are the kind of prophets and their writings and their ideas. And some people think that hadiths are almost as important as the Quran. Some people think that hadiths are not, they don't have any authority at all. So there are those people who kind of really kind of promote the idea of the Quran and say that hadiths are not an appropriate way of understanding the revelation of God. And that's, I want to go back to this idea. The root that Islam comes from is from Islam means in a religious context the voluntary submission to God or to Allah, and that root is from the same class of words in a lot of Semitic languages that give us the Hebrew word shalom, or in Arabic it would be salam. It comes from this family of meaning that means wholeness, goodness, completeness, peace, safety. It's a very broad kind of range of ideas, but it has all these ideas, and that's why someone who is a Muslim is one who submits. It's from the same. It's a participle form. One who submits. Islam is the voluntary submission to God. So even the name, if somebody says that Islam is a religion based in violence, they're simply not speaking factually, because even the very name of the religion comes from the idea that one who voluntarily submits him or herself to God is living in a state of peace and wholeness and safety. Everybody talks about jihad like that's something that all Muslims do, and I mean, kind of. The idea of jihad is very broad, but it really just means struggle. And for the average Muslim, a jihad is probably just the idea of, I am struggling against the things that would make me not live a life in submission to God. It's not, most Muslims today interpret jihad as a defensive form of warfare when it comes to like the military idea of it. But really broadly, it's striving to attain religious or moral perfection in submission to God. So I'm still swimming around here. I've mostly just been fighting. The rats are really good guys to fight because they give you really good stuff. But I've got to find the switch to drain all this water. So anyway, it's very broad. You can see that with all of this information, with all of these things, there are caliphs and Muhammad, and then his writings, and then other prophets' writings, and the Quran, and meanings of words that are interpreted differently in different contexts. There is such a wide range of meanings and ways to interpret the Quran and the Hadiths and the writings of Muhammad and of other prophets. There's so much going on, and it's just impossible for all of that to come together in one monolithic religious tradition. I don't think yes, I think this is where I want to be. There's just too much. That's like saying only Calvinism is Christianity, or only Kabbalism is Judaism, or something. Like, it's just too narrow of an understanding. And I hope that we in the West, who are not familiar with the sets of cultural traditions that represent Islam, that we don't pigeonhole them into one idea. It's not, oh, that's a Muslim. Like, oh, that's someone who calls themselves a Muslim and they adhere to a kind of a set of ideas or a set of traditions. So there's a whole lot going on there. And I think we do a disservice to our friends and neighbors who submit themselves to God in that way by saying, oh, this is what a Muslim is, and then just kind of, leaving it at that, making it too simple. The truth, another thing that John Green says, the truth resists simplicity. And Islam is not simple. It's very big and complex and very beautiful and very hard to understand sometimes. So hopefully that elucidates a little bit about some of my comments about Islam, but here we go. I think I'm going to hang out here for a little while. We'll see you next time on Tory Talks.